Terry Spagman. I live in Richmond, Utah. I have two brothers, Philip and Dallas. We work together on this dairy. We're a small dairy. We run about 115 milk cows and all their offspring. Raise steers up to about 1,000 pounds, sell them. We own and lease a lot of ground, up to about 1,300 acres. And we also do custom work. I broker hay and straw. We have our 4 crops that we raise for Spagman Brothers. I'm standing in a field of barley. Next to me, 100 feet, is wheat. 30 feet inside of me is corn for silage, and then another 60, 80 feet is an alfalfa field. And we mix and rotate all these. Being that we're talking about CSP today, I have been in a real opportune situation in that my father, Lamar, basically taught us a lot of conservation practices that he didn't even realize what he was doing in teaching us boys that. We're on our second rotation of the CSP. We've implemented some conservation practices that have been outside of that realm, and we're in the process of seeing how they are working. So far, they're all positive. This year, we have planted about 350 bare root trees as part of the CSP program, and they're in 3 different areas: associated ag lands, farmstead, and pasture. Here in a few weeks, we will, as part of this CSP, we will do some cover crop through interseeding our corn with interseeder that the Conservation District owns. It's a 6-row seeder, meaning that we'll do 6 rows at a time. It'll plant 2 rows of interseeding between the rows of corn. The concept is really working well as far as getting more humus in the soil, and it has some nitrogen fixing plants within the mix. This particular field won't be grazed. Cover crop will be tilled in. On another field we will graze it, and we will get anywhere from a month to 6 to 8 weeks of additional feed out of that cover crop for the 20 head of mother cows and calves that we have on the field itself. This particular field is the first field we did with the interseeder for Spagman Brothers. Because of the nature of this field, when we did this field last year, we had all stages of corn in this field. We had corn that was 4 or 5 feet tall. We had corn that was 1 foot tall throughout the field. And so to us, it was a real huge test plot because of the nature of it. Went coast to coast in this field. It's under a pivot, and it got all the water it wanted and needed. Come harvest time, chopping the cover crop in with the corn is not an issue with these new choppers. They don't rebel at that cover in there. We harvest this off. We watered it again, and we turned cattle in late, probably October-ish. And we have cattle we can run into here. This is fenced. And this is one of the fields that we got probably an extra 3 weeks of feed. Part of the stuff in that cover crop wintered over some of the grasses. And we had grasses 6 inches tall in this field this spring. That the cattle, that was their first choice. We had some native grasses, we had some tame grasses here in another corner. Their first choice every day was what they could glean off the cover crop. And just the way it worked out last year, we didn't get this field tilled in the fall, and so that crop was just left there to grow, which was an excellent deal for us. We didn't know it was going to be that good because we like to till them in the fall, but that'll happen again this year. We have Tony Richards with us today, and he's been instrumental in helping us get the interseeding program established and going.
Over the last couple of years, the district has gotten a lot of interest in soil health, and so we were looking at opportunities that we could develop to get more diversity and more cover crops into their farming operations, and came across the idea of an interseeder. And Terry's been instrumental with the district we've got some grant money that we were able to purchase the interseeder, allow for us to put cover crops into established corn stands. and add in some benefits of covers to what would typically just be corn silage. So we've had a lot of opportunities over the last couple of years to start doing that. Terry did some here on this field personally. We included things such as annual ryegrass, radishes, turnips, kale, collards. We did some clovers, so it was quite a diverse mix with the hope of being able to provide some supplemental feed, as well as provide some competition against weeds, also to help build the soils, build up the organic matter, and overall soil health. From this point, we actually have interseeders now that are being developed and built for Box Elder County, for Sevier County. We have one in Weber that's shared in Weber and Morgan and Davis. We have a lot of interest from the Division of Water Quality on being able to improve water quality from improving soil health. So they've been helping to push it, and we've got a lot of interest throughout the state. This year we got a statewide grant that's helping to help producers purchase seed, and also we're looking at soil testing and doing other monitoring to figure out how well it has benefits for like removing excess phosphorus from maybe fields that have had too much manure applied. So we have a lot of momentum right now when it comes to cover crops, and interseeding has been a key in getting that movement forward.
Part of the CSP project is, along with the cover crops and the seedlings and the trees, is pollinators. I've been involved with pollinators for a few years now. We have an area down in our flats down here that we are going to put some pollinators. They've worked out really well in the past. We have a pivot in one area that where we park the pivot to store it for non-use times. It's planted into pollinators, and it seems to work really good for that. And so we've elected to put in another, I believe it's a couple acres, in another place by a reservoir.
We've worked with Mr. Spackman on his operation for a number of years with EQIP contracts, and then a few years ago he came in and we put together a conservation stewardship program application together, and it eventually made its way to a contract. The conservation stewardship program is an opportunity for local ag producers to apply and try to increase the conservation on their operation. CSP is the acronym for it. It's really a program for people who have a high level of conservation. They've been conservation minded in the past, but they want to try some new management practices, try some new things that they haven't done before to take their conservation level to a higher level. The Spackmans are a pretty unique situation with their operation, as they have a number of different land uses. Terry talked about where they have cropland, pasture land, and then some of their farmstead. And they also have a lot of sort of incidental acres with associated ag land. And also they have a number of water features on their property. The NRCS, when they do the conservation stewardship program, we're able to take each land use and find a conservation practice and enhancement that fits for each land use. And those enhancements can be anywhere from a field border to cover crops, to filter strips, planting trees for wildlife to increase food, habitat. Also pollinators are a big focus that we're trying to improve in the area. There's been a big decline in the number of different pollinators across the country. So part of the enhancements that Terry is doing for his contract is he's doing cover crops for soil health. So the cover crops will increase the soil organic matter. They'll provide protection from wind and water erosion, and hopefully they'll increase the microbial activity in the soil. Another aspect of the cover crops are to provide pollinator habitat. The pollinator benefits should help with good bugs and hopefully reduce some bad bugs as well. Over here in this pasture area, he's setting aside an area where he's establishing bare root trees to provide cover and food for wildlife habitat. You can see here he put Roundup around the grass just so they wouldn't have competition when they get established, and he's able to have the water here to establish those trees. If a producer is interested in applying for the Conservation Stewardship Program, they can contact their local field office. We have a number throughout the state. The producers beforehand It would be beneficial if they gathered their management records for the past several years. They can make sure they have their leases up to date on any land that they might be leasing. They can look over and do their own inventory of things that they would want to consider to address, whether it be a resource concern or different opportunities for different management. The producers can contact the Farm Service Agency and update their farm service records, update the fields that they run, make sure that the boundaries are correct. And then also if they're an entity, they can gather their entity papers and make sure their entity is up to date. The application process is pretty simple. It's just a few-page application. You can contact the NRCS office and they can sit down with you and just go through those pages, and they'll get you started on the path to a CSP contract.
To me, the CSP program, in 3 years that I'm on it right now, I'm really not going to see, I'm hoping I'm wrong, but I don't think I'm going to see a huge benefit all up front. But I think if I continue that practice over lots of years, the benefits are going to multiply and come at the end, and it's going to be a big new picture at the end. And if we don't do that, we're going to get stagnant, and we're going to be doing the same thing. My kids will be doing the same things that I'm doing right now, but they're going to live in a different generation of time, and that's not going to be acceptable. So to me, that's where the CSP has its perks in my world.